Hello and welcome back to another episode of Critical Reactions with your host Bryan. It is Monday. Normally we'd be starting a new theme, but today we're going to be continuing on last week's theme since we only checked out 3 songs. We're going to be looking at one on today, Monday, one on Wednesday, and one on Friday, giving us 6 songs for this theme instead of the usual 5. Today we're looking at a track from Death Cab for Cutie, this one called No Room in Frame, which I think is kind of funny because Friday we left off with King Crimson's Frame by Frame. So, got a little bit of a frame thing going on in the middle of this week's theme. This comes off their 2015 album Kitsugi. Let's dive in and see what's going on.
I don't know where to begin. There's too many things that I can't remember. They disappeared like a trend.
Just a nice
And
4/4.
the hum of the 5 in the early morning. And now I'm
They still have
taking
that
my time.
scrapey digital sound in the backgrounds,
Linger through the valley.
building
This
ideas on
highway
top of
lived in
it.
my mind. And it takes me back to the place that made me. 'Cause I am your way.
Width on the vocals here.
Cameras turn to face you, no room in frame for two.
Continuing to expand the song. That initial sound is still present in the background under everything we've added so far.
You cannot outrun a ghost, speeding southbound lanes with abandon. It catches you on the coast or on the cliffs of the Palisades. You killed the engine and then it hovers above, reeling bodies failing to discover a thing they once knew as love.
Interesting percussion.
Raising
The cymbal,
voices to
closed hi-hat.
one another.
Okay. Yeah, this is an acoustic drum, but that snare we had earlier did not sound acoustic at all. It's really interesting, all the sparseness in our verse contrasted with the pure size of our chorus, just filling the sound sphere wall to wall. Yeah, a really introspective bridge there. To just sort of fade out like mist. Yeah, I dig this. It's a nice indie rock track. Nothing too difficult to listen to, very palatable. And it takes a very direct route on things. It is a traditional structure. First chorus, bridge, final chorus. But I think what's really cool is that they keep everything rather tied together. Across our opening, first intro, first chorus, it was a gradual buildup of ideas. We didn't really move to a chorus section as much as adapt the verse to functionally fit the purpose of the chorus by adding more layers. That's our entire intro or was layer adding. The verse added a couple of extra layers and then the chorus added more on top of that, but everything beneath it was the same thing we had in both the verse and our intro. Now, this constant use of the first section isn't something we continue to see. When we pull some of the layers off to revisit the verse for verse 2, I think some of the lines are different. It's more of a variation on our first verse rather than an expansion of like the chorus is. From there, though, we move into the second chorus, which is pretty much the same as our first chorus, and we go into a bridge, which is a bit more introspective. We'll touch on that in a bit. Coming back to a very full chorus. Third time through on it, I don't think I heard any changes compared to the other two times we visited the chorus. Very functional writing. But at least in the beginning of the track, it feels like linear growth. And I think it's interesting to contrast that linear growth with the stagnation that comes after it. Everything feels like it's built on top of what came before it, and it doesn't feel as separated, the verse and the chorus, as two distinct ideas. Something we can see very clearly in a lot of metalcore that we cover, where the verse is an entirely different riff than the chorus, where the atmosphere is an entirely different atmosphere in the verse than the chorus. Even sometimes the vocal style shifts. They are quite literally two distinct sections of the track, and here the line kind of blurs, especially in our opening. There's a lot of synergy and parallels between the two as they continue to use the same foundation for both sets, but that changes as the song goes on, and we no longer see this linear growth, and it sort of just becomes a stagnation. Oh, it's the chorus, let's do the chorus thing again. It's the verse, let's do a verse thing again. Instead of how can we take what we've done before and expand upon it? I wonder if this is going to show up anywhere in the lyrics. The ideas of growth at the beginning that transform into a sort of stagnancy over time. To get into the grooves, so to speak. When something is built, it's more about maintaining it. That kind of concept. Now, I talked about the bridge being introspective. We really need to visit what the verse and chorus are doing before we can get into why the bridge is an interesting deviation from them. The verse is sparse. It doesn't really feel that way at the beginning. It's certainly quiet and less layered, but that's how songs start usually. And so we do gradually add layers into the intro, and when the chorus comes, not the intro, but the first verse, which secondary is also an intro to the track. It's wearing multiple hats, that's for sure. Once we get into the chorus, though, it is much larger. The layers we add on aren't so much small isolated things, but many items working together to create a largeness of sound. We no longer have a single vocalist. It is a suite of vocalists all creating harmony with each other. The guitar is no longer this small sound. It's large sounds. It's chords that are allowed to ring out. They're not muted anymore. Everything about the guitar is bigger and takes up more space. The drums are less sparse and more intricate, more varied. There's more drum hits in here. It's all done in a way that gives the perception of a volume increase, but more importantly, is a size increase. It fills out the sound sphere entirely. I really like this contrast in particular because it's not like we have more layers in the chorus. Well, technically we do. We have more vocals that weren't present. But for the most part, all of our instruments are here in the verse and chorus, by the end of the verse at least. We change primarily the sound of the instruments, their timbre, their tone, and what they're playing, allowing them to hold out notes rather than play staccato notes, short tones. The expansion is a production one and a composition one. It makes it so that the verse doesn't feel small until you've heard the chorus, because the verse is still layered and densely packed. It doesn't feel lonely until you put it in perspective. And that's when you can really get the feeling, oh, that was actually a pretty small section. And subsequently, when we move from our first chorus into the second verse and we have the reduction of the sounds, the tones, the production, I think I said production twice, you feel things being removed. You really feel the emptiness now that you know just how large the sound sphere is, just how big the sound can be to fill it. And we don't have that anymore. It's still dense, it's still intricate, there's still a lot of layers in our verse, but we see how small it is in perspective. And so I really like that. You get to feel the buildup. It hits a point when you feel like this could be the largest. It showcases what the largest can be and then rips that away. And you get the perspective of the growth, you get the perspective of the contrast, and you get to revisit it with your new perspective. Really great writing all around on this. And we can take this in a few different ways thematically. I think I'm going to wait until we get into the lyrics um, before giving my thoughts on what I think it might represent. Now, after our two verses and choruses, we go into the bridge, which atmospherically replicates more of the verse side of things. We definitely take things down a notch as far as size, but I also feel like we remove complexity. It no longer has all the layers that the verse does, and it's a bit stripped down, which the verse already feels smaller compared to the chorus. And so this feels even more. And then we have a solo guitar playing this quaint little melody. It's not intricate, it's not complex, it's not harmonically interesting, it's not melodically technical. It sort of just is. It feels longing, feels lonely. It's a beautiful guitar solo. I really love it from a narrative perspective. And this whole section, it just feels like it yearns for something else. Before exploding back into our final chorus that I think has an expanded harmonic width on the lead vocal line. There are at least 3, maybe 4 vocals now doing harmonies. It is a small variation on the final chorus. That takes us to the end of the track, which sort of just peters out. It's not a strong resolution. Harmonically, we do find resolution, but it sort of just is. Sonically, it's not a bad ending. The song sort of naturally pulls down to a point and then allows that note to ring out until it doesn't anymore. It's pretty traditional as far as endings go, but it feels lackluster. It feels, well, technically kind of neutral, I suppose. it sort of just is. The song's over. It's not a good ending. It's not a bad ending. There's resolution to it, but it doesn't really make me feel anything. It just kind of happened. The song ran its course, and now there's no more song. When we pair that with some of the thoughts I had about building versus maintaining, it almost feels like boredom has kicked in. The person who creates the music is tired of maintaining this sound and is ready to build something new, to move on to their next idea. And so the song just fades. It's just done. It's over. No fanfare, no big moment, no giant peak to hit a climax before wrapping up in a denouement. It's just over. Someone got bored and moved on, and the song no longer is maintained. That's how I feel about it. It's the whole song feels like this. There's an excitement at the beginning that turns into a state of being. It's just how things are that turns into an isolation and then a giving up, a moving on. I'm gonna hit some lyrics and see what kind of themes we can explore in those. So the song is, from my read, a relationship song, one that seems to be on the downturn. Interestingly, it is paired and paralleled with driving. There's frequent recurrences of the idea of a highway, um a road, outrunning things, speeding down southbound lanes. Uh, I guess that's it. I don't quite know where to draw the parallels, what the purpose of them is, but the other aspects of the lyrics certainly stand out to me in a way that I can make sense of, which is usually a good thing for this analysis section. The chorus, I think, speaks volumes of what it's about. It says, "Was I in your way? When the cameras turned to face you, no room in frame for two." This person feels like they didn't have a place in the other person's life, that there wasn't room for them. Verse 2 says, "You can't outrun a ghost, speeding southbound lanes with abandon. It catches you on the coast or on the cliffs of the Palisades. You killed the engine, and then it hovers above, reeling bodies failing to discover the thing they once knew was love, raising their voices to convince one another." It almost talks about driving to get away from tough times in a relationship, possibly just the concept in general of ignoring the truth. The ending says the thing they once knew was love, raising their voices to convince one another, is a fantastic way of phrasing that. The idea that usually at the end of a relationship, if it gets dragged out, there tends to be a lot of arguments, a lot of trying to persuade your partner that your griefs with the relationship itself are in hopes to make it stronger. It's the love that you feel, and you're trying to convince them that it's love that's driving your passion, and you're feeling upset. The other side's usually doing the same thing. They have their own grievances, and it's usually both a little bit of love for themselves and a love for the relationship. Trying to repair something, prove that it's still salvageable. You don't try to fix something that's broken that you don't care about. But what if underneath the facade, everyone's just trying to convince one another they care about it? No one really does. It's an interesting perspective to take on it. And it's possible that all the parallels with driving down highways, outrunning ghosts, is trying to run away from these problems and not ever addressing them. Once again, it's about kind of sweeping everything under and looking only at what is being presented rather than what's being hidden, ignoring the realities of the situation, a little bit in favor of the fantasy that it's fixable and that everybody wants it to get fixed. The bridge mentions that this is sort of the status quo for things. At one point it says I guess it's not a failure, we could help, and we'll both go on to get lonely with someone else. As if to say that neither one of them are really built for relationships, and that no matter what, no matter who they end up getting in a relationship with, it's going to end the same. These people are destined for loneliness. They don't know how to be with others. I don't know if I necessarily like that bridge. It feels a bit projecty, primarily because we don't get the other person's perspective on things. It's not something you can really help. Being, a lot of art is told through a single perspective, especially when it's personal like this. It's difficult to put yourself in somebody else's mindset, especially somebody else who has hurt you recently. So I do feel there's a bit of projection in that bridge, but it's possible this was also written from perspective as well. This could be not a recent breakup, but a much older one, and they saw that after many relationships, both of them are still lonely. Could be just an observation there rather than a prophecy. I don't know if many of the reads that I had in the music necessarily line up with this, but the somber isolation is certainly present throughout all of this. The lyrics are exceptionally gloomy, and in retrospect, I'm sure it influences a little bit, but there is a grayness to the song, the timbre, the production of it all, its color. It isn't bright or chirpy or cheery. It's, like I mentioned, it sort of just is in a lot of ways. It's not negative, it's not positive, it's just sort of there. And the lyrics kind of lean towards that direction as well. There's no anger, there's no sadness. It's sort of a disconnected recollection of the events. Again, it kind of has a feeling of perspective on it. Maybe 10 years down the line, these are my thoughts on us back then. Alright, with all that said, let's dive into a Tiny Desk concert that Death Cab for Cutie put on for NPR 8 years ago. Alrighty, I gotta set the volume real quick on this so that, just normalize everything, make sure it's not too loud for anyone, make sure all the, oh wow, that's something I should have done before I started recording. Make sure all the levelers and the cool EQ stuff down here is all properly balanced. Let's dive into this and see what they're doing for a live concert.
This next song's on a new record. It's called No Room in Frame. I don't know where to begin. There's too many things that I can't remember. As I disappeared like a trend on the hum of the 5 in the early morning. And now I'm taking my time up through Coalinga, through the valley. This highway lived in my mind. It takes me back to the place that made me. Was I your way? When the cameras turn to face you, no room in frame for two.
it's certainly a bit more isolating given the lack of
Cannot outrun
layers.
a ghost, speeding southbound lanes with abandon. It catches you on the coast or on the cliffs of the Palisades. You killed the engine and then it hovers above, reeling bodies failing to discover a thing they once knew as love, raising their voices to convince one another. Was I in your way when the cameras turned to face you? No room in frame for two. And how can I stay in the sun flows all through my veins? It's true, and I guess it's not a failure we could help, and we'll both go on to get lonely with someone else, with someone else. Was I in your way when the cameras turned to face you? No room in frame for two. And how can I stay in the sun when the rain flows all through my veins? It's true. I guess it's not a failure we could help, and we'll both go on to get lonely with someone else.
All right. Yeah, I don't know that I have much to add on to this one. It's a stripped down version. We don't have any of the layers. We don't have any of the extra vocal harmonies. Uh, there's no separation sonically, texture-wise, between the piano and guitar lines. They've been merged into one. And through all this, though, it feels more isolating. I feel like that's the best benefit out of it. But I feel like there's also a claustrophobic nature that I never really realized that really helps it. The chorus is saying, was there no room in frame? Was your life so cluttered that I couldn't have been a part of it? That the chorus being as large as it is and as full as it is really showcases a lack of room in the frame. It adds a lot to that message, and I think it would have been really cool if the vocals actually got lost a bit in the mix there. Not great from a listening perspective, but from an artistic one. That would have been a really cool addition. Without it, though, this just ends up feeling like a lonely person recalling memories of a relationship. Whereas the other track feels a bit more present, it feels a bit more now. In fact, towards the end of the analysis of the studio version, towards the end of the lyrical analysis, I began to wonder how much distance was between the relationship and the song. And I think it's interesting how both versions of this track feel different. They're both gloomy, kind of just are. They're both got that gray feeling to them. But the studio version feels a bit more present. It's a recent pain. He still feels suffocated. Not suffocated, but pushed out of the person's life. It's a recent wound. This feels like time has been left on, and it's memories. It still stings a little, but it's more of an objective feeling. This is how things were. It's just me and a guitar now. We're still kind of lonely, but it doesn't hurt as bad. And that's a lot of that comes down to the stripped downness of it. The fact that there's so little layers. It feels more focused, more meditative. But aside from that one angle to view this track on, I don't think I like this song better. I think it's a fine rendition. I know doing Tiny Desk concerts, you have to take room into account. They don't have a lot of placement here. Not to mention that unless they were going to use a laptop, I don't know how they would replicate all the layers anyways, since I'm pretty sure they're still just a three-piece band. So if they wanted to do everything live, this was certainly one of the ways to go about doing it. Strip back as much as you can and just play what's necessary. But I do feel like artistically it hurts the song just a little bit, though I do think it's an interesting take and provides a new perspective on it. So it's not a bad version, and I think it's really well done for what they were aiming for, but it's not my preference, which makes this 4 for 4. Yeah, I think every song so far I've enjoyed the studio more, which is it's just confirming what I already knew about myself. I'm not a big fan of live music. Well, I'm a fan of being live at music. I'm not a fan of listening to recorded live music. Although, like I did mention, I do enjoy this Tiny Desk, Audio Tree, studio sessions. This is sort of crosses a line. It's sort of a mix between live and studio session, because they do have a crowd around them, but it does feel a bit more contained to me, closer to studio. Anyways, not to drag this out any further, those are my thoughts on Death Cab for Cuties. No Room in Frame. What do you think? Do you enjoy this track? Was there anything that stood out to you? Do you like one version over another? And which is it? Let me know all that down in the comments section. Above that, in the description box, you'll find a link for Linktree. It takes you to this menu right here. You can find links to my music, ways to support the channel, a link to the Discord server, and so much more. Above that, if you could, like, subscribe, and ring the bell. I forgot to push the button. Like, subscribe, and ring the bell. Let's go. I greatly appreciate all of that. I'll be back tomorrow. We're going to do some stuff. I'm going to check out some special selections tomorrow. We're going to do some stuff. Until next time, remember to be critical, not cynical, of the music you listen to, and have a fantastic morning, afternoon, or evening whenever you choose to watch my videos.